Who the fuck wrote season 3 of Alice in Borderland? I don't know, man. I don't know. They need to be fired. Hi, pals. Oh, why is my shirt itchy and spiky? Oh, autism. Hi, pals. It's me, Artie. They them pronouns only. And yeah, I mean, I watched this a little while ago now. I just didn't have the time to record my little video of my thoughts. But also, I did watch it a little bit late because I was on holiday when the season dropped. So, and it's been busy, and I already had a plan for Halloween month, so here we are. I wanted to talk about it anyway at some point, so I'm just gonna do it. I don't, if the views suck, the views suck. It is what it is, innit? But yeah, I just wanted to talk about season 3 of Alice in Borderland. I was conflicted, to be fair, before it even actually happened. Yes, they hinted at it with the Joker card at the end of season 2. I understand. I got it. But was it necessary? I fear no. Yeah, I mean, I think Alice in Borderland suffered a similar fate as Squid Game, where they became super popular with their audience. Because I mean, I don't know how mainstream Alice in Borderland is really. Obviously, it's on Netflix. You know, it's pretty mainstream enough, but like, I don't think it was quite the same hit as Squid Game. But also the way things were released was a bit different. Squid Game just did one season sometime in the pandemic, like in the lockdown sort of period. He didn't want to make any more because he told the story. Then came back a few years later, like, I don't make any fucking money off of this show. I've had to come back to continue making several more seasons. Whereas I think Alice in Borderland had sort of a reverse, where it was like, we have a 2-season run narrative that makes sense, and then we'll come back 4 years later with an unnecessary season 3. And both shows were, in my opinion, both of those shows, their season 3 sucked hard. They were not good enough. It just was not worth it. I mean, I did go into it open to the idea. It was nice to see a disabled character, for one. Like, I feel like that's sort of one of the main things I feel like has been missing from some of these shows. I think Alice in Borderland has had a few disabled characters here and there, but we don't see much of them. Like, I think season 2 was when they brought in the teenage archery champion who lost a leg, or like lost part of her leg, so was an amputee, and lost an eye. Didn't she lose an eye? I don't remember. That's just one example. I feel like mainly, though, people died rather than were disabled. And I don't think anybody was disabled in Squid Game past being old or having addiction or mental health issues. There weren't really any physical disabilities / health issues, really. So, like, yeah, it was a nice start to see that one of our main character narratives was going to be this guy who uses a wheelchair. He's a weird one. I don't know how I feel about his depiction generally. Like, here's the thing. It's a bit like my Evil Bisexuals video, where it's like, these are not inherently bad representations, right? Sure, they might be based off of stereotypes, or they might just be, here's the bad guy, look at him, he's disabled. It's that sort of vibe that does come along a lot in TV and film around the world. I feel like it's just like, hey, here's an evil guy, let's just make him disabled. Or something like that. And it's like, oh, if he's not an evil guy, let's make him inspirational. Let's make him an inspiration. I'm gonna bring you closer. Oh, not that close. He works in research. Everyone thinks he's crazy. He killed a student. He killed a fucking student, mate. Like, not on purpose. And she was consenting to being experimented on. If anything, she was pushing to be experimented on, because he wants to, I don't know, find out what's afterlife, what happens when you die, something like that. Yeah, he's looking into all of the people who were in that. Oh, what even happened? Was it a meteor? I don't know. the cause of all of those characters to go to the Borderland, and a bunch of them dying, and then some of them coming out of comas or whatever, alive. So he's obsessed with that and all of the people who were involved in that and trying to work out what the fuck's going on. But basically, all of those people don't remember shit, or like most of them don't remember anything until they start developing or getting PTSD like nightmares, flashbacks, which my forensic science lesbian has. Anne. Sorry, I couldn't remember her name. I didn't write it down originally. But like, the disabled dude is just kind of an asshole. He's not a likable person. Mood, me neither. So like, this is why I don't want to outright say this is a bad representation of disabled people, because I'm, same. I'm not particularly likable either. So, and I also work in research. Fuck. You got me. You got me. But I don't know. I wished his narrative was a bit more interesting. I feel like they were trying to push this romantic narrative between him and Usagi. Obviously that was one-sided. Only he felt it. But even then I was like, does he feel that? Because I'm really not getting any of this shit from this guy. Does this man also have autism? Because his face barely moves, bitch. He just kind of always looks grumpy. Also, same. I didn't like that narrative and vibe. There seemed to be some kind of weird inherent jealousy expected to be there. Jealousy towards Arisu for being and having everything that he isn't / doesn't have. And I just felt like that was forced. In no way was this crush or romance ever actually even encouraged. They weren't even particularly affectionate with each other. I think maybe one of the issues of season 3 is just that it felt too short for the amount of narrative they were trying to fit in, particularly as we were in like mainly 2 point of views, Arisu and Usagi, or like Usagi and what's his name? I don't know. Ryuji. That's it. Ryuji. It's mostly those 2 points of view. Occasionally we'll see the other guy from season 1, serial murderer dude, one of the dudes who became a citizen at the end of season 2. So that's the thing as well. I liked that. I like that they brought back those two. I feel like, though, they didn't bring enough of these old characters back. We only got a small snippet of everybody else, pretty much, right at the end in the last episode. Like, we don't see them ever, which is boring. Sucks. Why? The only one who really had much more narrative was Anne, and even then she had next to no narrative that season either. She is the one that helped Arisu to die but not die, so that he could follow Usagi back to the Borderlands, because Ryuji and the serial killer dude basically just lured her to the Borderlands again, with the expectation or thought that she would find or see her father, which amounted to nothing in the end. She does, minor spoiler, and I won't go into detail, but she does end up having a meeting with him near the end, like at the end, in the last like 1 or 2 episodes. And again, the short time we had to get to know all these characters and also get into the games and stuff made it hard to give a shit about the new characters. Some of them got killed off so quickly that there wasn't really time to even really care that much about them before they were killed, and they didn't have other relationships to our main characters of like Arisu and Usagi, like in the first season, for example. Like season 1, we don't really see much of his mates, Arisu's mates, his 2 best friends, but we get all of the backstory of who he was in the real world, who his friends were in the real world, who they are to each other, how long they've known each other for. And then we see all of them together for that entire first episode before they die. Also really horrifically too, by the way, the idea as well of seeing best friends turning against each other, or like seeing what kind of character each of them would be when really pushed to it. We didn't get any of that in season 3, obviously, because we know what this world is. We know the vibes now. We know Arisu is an exemplary player of the games because he was a fucking video game nerd in life before the Borderlands. I will say it was / is nice to see Arisu and Usagi, seeing them several years later, becoming this, calm, well-adjusted, sweet little couple / family unit. However, I will also say that did fuck me off too, that Usagi's pregnancy was then used in the games. Does anybody feel like this sounds familiar? It's because Squid Game did the same fucking thing. And both of these shows, season 3s, ended the same way, which fucked me off too, with going to California and seeing that the Borderlands and the Squid Game still happens elsewhere in the world and not just in Korea or in, South Korea specifically, or in Japan. Like, that really pissed me off. It was unnecessary when Squid Game did it, and it's just terrible that Alice in Borderland did it too. Why? Especially considering I feel like a lot of people probably compare these two shows. Some positively saying, if you like this, you'll like this, like I've done. And I did have that video early this year talking about the trans characters, the trans femmes in the shows, and the difference in the representation and the casting and stuff like that. But the fact that they both included trans people. But for the most part, it's probably not super positive when people compare the two. Like, yes, they have some similar premises. Obviously, every media has its own archetypes. A lot of characters fit, so I wouldn't necessarily say that in itself would mean they are the same or similar, unless you could literally go, here we go, this, and this. I did think like that was one of the few saving graces in season 3 of Alice in Borderland. I did think they were heading down the road of what Squid Game did with their main character. I thought he was going to die for the baby. He doesn't, spoiler, and I think that was a good thing. Using the baby as a player, I liked it differently in this. Like, the way they used it was a little bit more creatively, and there was no risk to the baby unless there was risk directly to the mother. Whereas, obviously, at some point, what's her name gives birth. Whereas in this one, in Alice in Borderland, Usagi didn't even know she was pregnant. And I feel like if she did know, she wouldn't have gone to the Borderlands. So, like, she was so early in her pregnancy that basically it was unlikely she would have even known for another few weeks, maybe. And the only reason why they did find out is because they found her unconscious, and obviously that's part of the checks they do. One question I did have, which as well, I think luckily they did this well, in my opinion. I wondered, I was like, is Ryuji still disabled when he gets to the Borderlands? I was waiting for this for so long. I was like, and he was. It's not like autism after death in Ghost Whisperer. He was still disabled, and they had to navigate these games and challenges with his disability in mind, which is something I feel like is always lacking in dystopian, sci-fi, adventure kinds of shows, zombie shows, books, films, etc. Like everything. He does sacrifice himself at the end, but I will give them a pass on that, because I feel like it makes more sense to his character development and arc, and isn't quite as a straightforward sacrificing yourself so that you don't burden your non-disabled counterparts. If anything, I feel like actually his character in this sort of element is really good, because he definitely valued himself a lot in this kind of weird way, but he definitely was like, I'm not gonna fucking die, bitch. I'm only gonna die if I'm gonna actually find out any shit that I wanted to find out. You know, I want to know what's going on because I'm weird and can't stop obsessing about the afterlife like that. However, bitch, you can't kill me. You can't kill me. You're not gonna convince me to die, bitch. So yeah, I loved that. I loved that they found some leg braces so that they could do things without the wheelchair involved. We did see him use those leg braces a couple of times. Mostly he was using his wheelchair though. He is unable to move his legs independently. So yeah, I thought that was not only interesting but also just very fascinating to me. That's the thing. I think it's more challenging to work out how you would keep a disabled character alive in these kinds of circumstances and plots and narratives. And that's why when people do it, or at least try to do it, like, you have my respect, because most don't even bother trying and they die at the beginning or they sacrifice themselves because they're a burden. Like, bitch, I'm not fucking sacrificing myself. I'm not. I'm not. So yeah, really appreciated that. I loved that he was still disabled, and I loved seeing how they were all navigating that together, but also how much you have to rely on other people as a disabled person. Like, I feel like it was very in your face in this show, because it is one of those shows that's kind of like, we're all out for ourselves, really, even though working together most of the time would probably help everyone involved working together. Everything would be a little bit easier. Vibes, this idea of really having to heavily rely on other people when you're disabled was just very poignant in this season. So yeah, so even though I think this season really fucking sucked for a lot of reasons, I did really like those parts of it. Like I said, I feel like when he does sacrifice himself, it's at the end of the show, so he's there the whole time, but also it is part of his character arc where he's a very selfish person at the start of this show. He's very selfish, literally does not give a fuck about anybody else. But as he comes to learn and get to know Usagi, but especially Arisu, who I feel like he deems in his mind as like somebody who's never had any struggles or shitty things happen to him, has always been so lucky and just likable, and whatever. He's not had to go through life struggles to be good looking, to have the girl and soon the family and the job and friends, and to be respected in community. As he gets to know Arisu, he realizes not only is that not true, but Arisu is genuinely very thoughtful and well-intentioned, and is always willing to sacrifice himself before anybody else. Even when people are always trying to pay him back for what he's done for them in the Borderlands, and they do, but it always starts with him doing some kind of thing that's, some kind of sacrifice to him that helps these other people, even if it hinders him or puts him at risk. Even then, he still doesn't want to accept their sacrifices. He doesn't want anyone to risk their lives for him. And a lot of the times he only accepts it because he has to. Because yeah, there was the Yakuza guy who actually I ended up quite liking, and I was really sad that he died so soon. He kind of forced Arisu to get through on that game, because everyone who actually meets and gets to know Arisu and sees how he works and how he does things, they all soften and respect him and know that he's the one who needs to carry on. And also, I mean, they all, especially in this season, I think they all knew he was there looking for his pregnant wife, which I think makes most people generally a bit more sacrificing, I guess. However, there are definitely some plot holes. I don't think were ever really fully. I think they were just
it's just vibes, guys. Don't think about it too hard.
But this whole Borderland thing. How will you get there in this 2-minute time before you die with the serum and stuff? Doesn't make sense when Usagi did it first, was obviously in a coma for longer than 2 minutes, because how did Arasu do all of that stuff before he then went and got the stuff from Anne? That annoyed me. I was sat there thinking about it all the time. And I was like almost entirely right, where I was like, alas, I fear we will never see Anne again. We do see her again near the end, but like not much. Not much. And they didn't give me, where are my lesbians? Where are my lesbians? I'm so sorry. Why is my accent so bad? I'm so sorry to everybody in or from Wales. Like I said, because nobody came back, we didn't get our lesbians. There was nothing gay about this season, nothing trans about this season either. So I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I am disappointed. I'm disappointed by all that stuff. I would also say all the characters that both of them meet in the Borderland are people who have been in the Borderland before. So like that was confirmed. Everyone except Ryuji. Everyone except him has been there before and survived. Obviously, they may not have played every game or every level, because I mean, even Arasu didn't do that. You just needed to everyone needed to play enough games of each level to collect the entire card set, right? So, like, again, working as a team was actually the secret. And considering they had all been here before and survived and know how it fucking works, they were all stupid as fuck. God, there were so many things that made no sense. One thing I did like is the like super duper over analyzing things and double triple guessing themselves and double triple guessing other players' strategies, because that is so real. That is so real, because watching traitors every year is just people going, oh, but that could be a double bluff, that could be a triple bluff, oh, but that could be the that to the be the that to that to be, and you're like, yeah, like anything could be possible. That's kind of the point. All of your arbitrary reasons for thinking somebody's a traitor are wrong, because you're just, again, it's the internal bias that nobody likes to like admit exists in this game. That bit's a bit unrelated here, but they all really heavily rely on Arasu because he understands the creation of games. Oh, yeah, they want him back because he was the best player. He defeated the last lot of, I can't remember what the fuck they were called, citizens. And they want him back because they're fucking bored. Everyone sucks at this game. They want him back. They want to trap him to make him play forever, which makes no sense. But yeah, everyone's just stupid. Especially, I can't remember if they were all in Arasu's group originally that I'm thinking of, but the first game that he did, like, obviously something really bad was going to happen. I don't know. The siblings, the brother and sister, the way the brother basically didn't evenly use his and his sister's points in that last game, so he fucking dies, and that nearly fucks all of them over because she sees his body and fucks the plan that they had so badly. That really, I knew he was going to do it. And that really fucked me off. And it really fucked me off that all of them as well were believing what was on the walls was their future. Bitch, how do you know? How do they know? How do they know that that's going to be your future? How would they cause that to happen? It didn't make any sense. Why? Like, because it was never explained. So if it was true, how? But also, it probably wasn't true. I don't think it was true, because in the end, they all ended up having like quite nice, happy lives, the ones who got through. But before, obviously, that happened, it's like, why would you believe that? Every game in here is some kind of manipulation tactic. So that annoyed me a lot, because that is what caused a lot of the people to split up, deviate from Arasu's plan, because the brother and sister then went in a different direction because they were trying to find the way out for themselves rather than trying to free Rei. When she was in the isolation, Tetsu and Nobu as well were stuck one way, and Nobu decided to go his own way because his future looked so bad in the other one that he just wouldn't do it. And that's what basically led to Tetsu uh, going into withdrawal from his drugs. I was just thinking to myself too, I was like, because he was also a doctor, right? I was thinking, surely you know that to keep the withdrawal at bay, at least for now, you should probably take some of those drugs. Like, just a little bit. Just so you don't fucking die of withdrawal. But then he was picking all the wrong things anyway, and he was on his own, and then he fucking died, and he had a really bad, like, future thing that was all over the walls, blah, 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 boo-hoo, and like, that was sad. That pissed me off a lot. I liked him. He was insane. I thought him and, is it Sachiko? Yes, Sachiko. I thought Tetsu and Sachiko, I thought they had like a thing going on, and I was hoping that they would get to the end and out of the Borderland and be together and happy. Alas, no. But that was just like some of the stupidity I witnessed through that. Devastated, the fucking train autistic dies. They gave us a train autistic and they fucking killed him. And also, it was so funny the fact that he was a self-diagnosed train autistic, train expert, and he got the trains mixed up. It was just bare luck when he told them to put or to not put the gas mask on the train. That was so funny. However, how did they get Ryuji's wheelchair back? How did they get his wheelchair back? Because he didn't jump out of that train with his wheelchair attached. I don't know. Did they find a new wheelchair? I don't know. Who's Banda? Oh, Banda is the citizen, the serial killer guy. I never once took his name in, I'm not gonna lie. I would have liked to just generally have seen more of the characters that we saw in those first two seasons, even if they were really small characters that we only saw here or there with like a line or two. Alas, they only gave us him and the weird businessman. I mean, they did reinvent the wheel a little bit. They had slightly different rules for the games and how it was all processed. You know, instead of them having to navigate around Tokyo themselves, they were basically taken place to place and directed where their next game was. So it was still the same kind of vibe that different groups would be playing different games, but it was more of like an obvious leveling up sort of system that, you know, people died, obviously. The people who didn't die would then move up to the next level, to the next game, until it gets to, you know, that final level shit. I did kind of think, though, that everyone who's been there before felt a little bit Squid Game-esque with... It's been a while since I've really thought about that show. Gion. There we go. Gion. Because obviously he returned. He returned to the game. It wasn't just him returning. It was, you know, everyone in that first season of Squid Game, everyone voted to leave, didn't they? And then it was a bunch of them returned. So that's what that note meant. Brain cells working. But yeah, like especially the way they showed it in Alice in Borderland in this season was that, you know, we were in Borderland, we're introduced to the new group of people, and then we started going back and seeing a little bit more about them and their lives here and there outside of the Borderland. And also this what's his name? Banda gives so much recruiter energy. He gives recruiter vibes. That was a little bit too similar to me. They both look and dress relatively similarly, very well put together, sort of a suit. Some of the places that he was finding or gathering people, they played a game. They played a game to get into the Borderland, like they play a game to kind of be recruited into Squid Game. So yeah, some of those similarities I was a bit like, come on lads, really? Yeah, also like, finding people, giving them a card, dressed in a suit, creepy vibes. Everyone he was picking up as well are vulnerable people, whether they were into drugs or alcohol, suicidal, were going through or been through domestic violence, were being stalked, harassed, assaulted, things like that. They didn't have visas this time, which was one of my favorite parts about the first 2 seasons. I thought visas was a really interesting concept. Visas and citizens, that was so interesting to me. And it was all gone, really. Yeah, that wasn't great. How did they end? How did they get out of Borderland? Because they finished the game. This is the one part I didn't make notes on. I was watching the end of it, and I was so generally just disappointed. I was just like, I can't be asked to write this up. Also, nobody was the Joker. I don't think Banda was the Joker. I don't think anybody was the Joker, right? Like, that was the thing at the end with the scary death man who Arisu met. He was like, yeah, nobody's the Joker. The Joker is a concept. And it was just like, I didn't appreciate that, not gonna lie. It felt like a cop-out. Also, I'm not going to lie, the games were so much harder to follow in this season, and I think that was a bad thing. Like, for everybody watching, for the characters, for the plot, it was just a little bit too overly complicated, literally from the start. The zombie card game, generally interesting concept, liked that. Arisu, that was something I really liked. The fact that actually at the end of that game, Arisu was like, yeah, actually I was always a zombie. I was always a zombie. It was me. But yeah, the way he was trying to help Ray, who I don't know if she was always a zombie or made a zombie, but then also, yeah, they were like trying to band together, but then there's always somebody or like a small group who undermines the playing as a group, which is such a good commentary on the human race in general. There's always a small group of people who undermine what the majority have been working towards to better their lives. What was I saying? Yeah, so there are some similarities with the new games, obviously, to old games. So like, I felt like that game was very similar to the tag game, which was one of the Queen games, because you're basically trying to aim to be on the bigger team so you live. Everybody else dies if they don't already die in other ways anyway. We lost one of the group already in that game too, and it's always a specky guy. I swear to God, the specky guys are always either evil or wimps. That's the other trope I seem to notice at least in Alice in Borderland. I feel like that's what they do a lot. There are a lot of specky older blokes who are shaking wimps in Alice in Borderland. There was another funny moment actually that I thought was really interesting when Ryuji was in a game with Usagi at the beginning, where they had to, I don't know if they were running from something, but they had to run to somewhere whilst also dodging laser beams that were moving towards them, and he was purposefully tripping people up and using them as his shields. I thought that was so funny. Whereas Usagi was trying to help them, and he was saying, like, you should look out for yourself, when really there's actually a lot he personally can't do to help himself and keep himself alive. Like, a lot of the time he physically would not be able to do that if he didn't have help. And he does. He then fucking falls out his wheelchair and has to rely on Usagi's kindness to help him. And he lied to Usagi to get her back in the Borderland, which sucks, just because he was like curious about what the Borderland was and was like. Train Autistic does save the day though on the train thing in the end, because he's like, oh, the two trains are going to run alongside each other, so that's the other way that we can finish this and live. We jump to the other train when the door opens and lets the gas out, because that was edgy, that everybody trusted and believed Usagi to their own detriment. So they were not going to have enough oxygen canisters or whatever it was to get to the end of the train, which was like the whole point. So he saves the day. A few of the fucking bullshit dickheads don't make it across. And they were so mean to her. It's like, bitch, you chose to copy her, you chose to follow her, you didn't have to. That was your choice, you bitch. Somehow he jumped across the train, though. You know, he's one of the exemplary disabled people that has a lot of upper body strength. I know a lot of wheelchair users generally do have a lot more upper body strength anyway if they are a self-propelling wheelchair user, because you need to be strong. You need to be strong for that shit. Fuck me. That's one of the reasons why I choose to suffer in my standing, because I simply just do not think my Takayasu's arm would allow me to self-propel. I suffer in my standing. I think they found a wheelchair when they also found those leg braces. Arisu also becomes so severely injured. Oh, their train, they didn't hit the brake in time. So it went smash into the end thing. And he was really badly injured. This is when they first saw glimpses of each other, Arisu and Usagi, which I loved. Saw glimpses of each other, so they knew each other was there and alive, but weren't able to bridge that gap and join each other's trains or whatever. I feel like one of the other plot holes that was bothering me is I don't know what this serum is that they were using to die for 2 minutes, because Ryuji never perfected his, right? I don't believe he perfected the serum that he was using with that student that he killed. I feel like that was kind of a plot hole left open, because why would that exist in Borderland? I mean, unless I missed it, very possible, but I don't know. One of the ways they showed the adaptation of playing some of these games as a disabled person, there was a climbing game. And the way they adapted that was that Ryuji had his leg braces on so that his legs would remain straight. He could move his feet. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That performance was unclear, but basically it was a climbing one. So he was attached to Usagi by a rope in case he fell, when actually it was Usagi that fell at some point and he had to save her. Luckily, he's super strong. Basically, he would climb the same way as her, but he could still climb because, like I said, he's super strong in the arms. But that's sort of how they adapted it to make it a bit more safe, I guess, for him, is that he had the leg braces on and he was roped to Usagi in case anything happened. So I liked that. That was inventive and interesting. Yeah, again, I forgot about the same game that I mentioned the Yakuza guy died in. They also lost like a bunch of other players from their team. I think it was 2 girls. Yeah, 2 girls who were very like close. They basically were considering each other sisters, even though they didn't know each other before. Also, one of them was like practically disabled at that point as well. She had a really bad arrow injury from like episode 1 or 2. So she was walking around with a walking stick for a lot of the time she was on screen. So this game, they had to kick the canister and get it back into the thing before the timer ran out. There were a bunch of different rules and stuff. Some of the rules weren't disclosed until they happened, which I think I prefer rather than overloading with a million rules at the start of the game. But yeah, she died, and then so did her little sis bestie friend died. And like, I was sad about these characters, sure. I was sad about the Yakuza guy. I was sad about the Specky guy in the zombie card game. But like, we didn't have enough time with them for it to really hit as hard as a lot of the other character deaths and stuff in seasons 1 and 2. Even characters that we didn't have with us for very long, we just had a lot more content with them. There was a lot more reasons why it was sad that they died. So, like, I feel like a lot of these deaths just really fell flat this season because we just didn't have the characters long enough, or they just wasted too much time on other parts of the plot rather than investing time into those characters so that it would hurt our feelings when they died. Because, yeah, you know, the only ones that we really care about are Usagi and Arisu. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot literally Alice in Wonderland. You know, until we get towards the end, in the last 2 to 3 episodes, whoever's left, those are the ones that the deaths hurt a lot more, particularly when it's not their own fault that they ended up dying, like Tetsu, particularly. But like, not many of those characters died in the end. Tetsu, Kazuya was the Yakuza guy. Is his name just hold on. Hold on. Is his name just a anagram? Yeah. His name is a fucking anagram for Yakuza. That's so funny. That is so funny to me. I don't know if he just like made that up so people don't know who he is, like the character, but that is really funny. I obviously didn't notice that because I just forget. I forget everybody's names. He died in what, episode 2? No, what episode was that? 4? Yeah, episode 4. He dies. So like we only just started to get to know him really. Like he has a pretty gnarly one as well, gnarly death. My notes are so funny though. I've said, oh no, somebody's grabbed glass. Come on, man. Yes, show off your tats. Slay. Because, like, in a lot of Japanese and South Korean shows, they don't really have many tattooed people because tattoos are seen or associated with like the Yakuza or other criminal activity. Like actually, only recently, South Korea lifted the ban on non-medical tattoos. I don't necessarily know what qualifies as a medical tattoo exactly. I think it's a mixture of the purpose, but also who gives the tattoo. You have to be a fucking doctor or some shit. Had to. Whereas now they have finally lifted that ban because basically tattoo artists could have been arrested for tattooing people if they weren't licensed medical doctor. I'm not gonna lie, I love a tattoo. I love a tattooed person. And we don't often see many tattooed Asian people on TV generally. A lot of the times when they are usually associated with some kind of like underground criminal thing. So like this guy was the guy in season 1 of Squid Game, was also a criminal. He was tattooed. But yeah, either way, basically, Yakuza guy gets stabbed in the fucking neck. Disgusting. Then they go boom. I also feel like the overall reason for season 3 to happen feels like a reach. Like it just doesn't feel genuine. You know, oh, I want Arisu back because he was the best player and I'm bored. Like, who believes that? Not me. Yeah, I wrote in my notes for episode 6, I feel like the plot is moving without quite as much of the emotional impact as season 1 or 2. Like, I just didn't feel it. Just wasn't feeling it that much. Don't know what this was referencing exactly, why this happened. But one of my notes as well that I think is really funny is just Arisu starts beating the shit out of the disabled guy, laughing my fucking ass off. I don't remember that, but that's funny. Oh my god, how many episodes did they spend on the final game? So many. This is episode 6, and this is the final game. Because it's the 10 participants, but only 9 people are in the room, so they count the baby. That's literally. How many episodes are there? Okay, that makes sense. Looking back at this. Episode 6. Was there just 7 episodes? I mean, usually they have 10, you know? Yeah, why is there only 6 episodes on here? That's really weird. Everything says there's apparently only 6 episodes. So, episode 1, obviously. 2, 3, 4. I mistyped it. 5. Okay, there's only that's a really short season. No wonder why it was just so fast and not that impactful for me. There was only 6 episodes. I feel like they needed at least 10. Like I feel like 10 is kind of the minimum, especially how complex these arcs are and how many characters they end up having in. I know they're not like main characters, but they're characters you're supposed to give a shit about. Yeah, they did not have enough episodes for this. No wonder why season 3 sucks. Sucks. Boo! Actually, proper disappointed I'm really disappointed in season 3. Even more now because of that. I mean, at least Squid Game had like 8 to 10 episodes or something like that. Are you joking? Did they also only have fucking 6 episodes? Mentally ill. They get a pass for that though, because it's like that was a continuation of season 2. So if it was all one fucking season, it would be 13. 13 episodes. Season 1 was 9. So season 1 of Alice in Borderland was 8 episodes. And season 2 was also 8 episodes. I think being 2 episodes short for a standalone season, like, I feel like they needed at least 8, preferably 10 episodes. So yeah, no wonder why I felt like the pacing was off for this season. That really sucks. So yeah, we're like already on the final game. They have very similar dice and dice colors to what was used in those last 2 seasons of Squid Game. You know, the little old lady did them. They throw them, and then catch them on the back of your hand thing. They have very similar dice colors to throw the dice to decide, like, I don't know, doors and points and who's allowed through, how many people are allowed through each door and stuff like that. This one I also found really hard to follow. The rules didn't really make sense. There were so many of them as well, just thrown at you. It was really hard to like keep up with what the fuck they were talking about. I also felt like it was a little bit of a cheat that their final game they were able to communicate with each other through the wrist cuffs that they had to use for the game. That made the game too easy, honestly. That made the game easy to be able to talk to each other, for them to be able to strategize what they were doing. Obviously, there were still issues because people didn't fucking listen and were just doing whatever they wanted to do because they were so fucking gullible. Instead of just communicating with Arisu about wanting to do or try a different door or a different direction, they would just do it without telling him. And I feel like that was worse. At least let him know, I guess, because he was the one trying to strategize, but he couldn't strategize if he didn't know where people were. So it just seemed a little bit like you could have at least said so, or at least admitted what the fuck you were doing. Also, the lockdowns in that final game genuinely were like torture. I'm a little bit pissed. I'm a little bit pissed off. Because I actually wrote something similar to that for not the book I'm supposed to be working on. I wrote this a while ago as well, like maybe early this year, maybe last year. So that's why I'm a bit annoyed about it. But like, I mean, I'm probably not the first person to have ever written it, you know. So like, get over it. I wrote a very similar thing to those lockdown rooms and the experience in there, because autism, that's low-key probably one of the ways you would successfully torture me, I guess. Some of the rules again didn't seem to make sense. I wasn't sure how some of the characters could move room to room by themselves and weren't locked down. Was it because they had to be left in the room by everybody else leaving? I don't know. Again, it was just so hard to follow what the rules were for this last game. I spent most of those, like this last episode and a bit, just really fucking confused. Ray says as well at one point, I'm like, Slay, you are so true, girl. Ray says, instead of helping each other out, humans are selfish. And I was like, yeah, mood. And I think that's usually my favorite thing about these shows as well. It's just kind of holding up a mirror. reflecting the human condition back to us. Because we don't want to believe that we as people or us as an individual would do those things or would be like that. But really, 90% of the time, there's definitely going to be, like, even if it's a minority, that's the other thing that it shows, is that even if it's a minority of people who don't want to be a team player and help other people out, the minority has often been able to undermine the majority's wants and plans and action. Has anybody looked at the UK politics recently? Because I really feel that at the moment. Yeah, look, I literally wrote in here, bro should microdose his drugs, to be honest. Withdrawals are dangerous. And then also put, is he hallucinating? I can't remember at the moment. I think he was starting to hallucinate because of the withdrawal, which was making it worse. He was not in any kind of mind state to like make decisions. So he really needed somebody with him, like Nobu, whether it was just to, help him or to ask what to do to the others, because he stopped communicating through the cuff. He stopped responding to people before he died. I really thought Nobu was going to die too, so I'm glad he didn't. That would have been really quite sad, actually, is this kid who managed to somehow, survive a suicide attempt, ended up dying in the game. His mum had some really good words for him. It was one of the future things as well. One of his futures is his mum was dying, and she says to him, like, no matter what, I want you to live, or no matter what happens, live, or some shit like that. And I was like, yes, Nobu, live, keep living. The brother at least got to give a like final goodbye message to his sister before she died. Like, he knew he was a goner, and he got a nice little ending, really, whilst Tetsu was there reliving all of his awful past life, losing his job, losing his partner, becoming addicted to drugs, and all that sort of shit. The brother basically got to live a future that he was never going to get to see, which was seeing his sister fall in love and get married. By the way, their entire fucking family's dead. Their whole family fucking dead. Idiot. It's just like, that's why that fucks me off so much as well. It would be a bit different to me. Like, I am an only child, for one. Like, I'm an only child. I still have, my mum, my grandparents, but to me, logically, it fucked me off that brother kept using his own points instead of, evenly using him and his sister's points, so that they both got to the end, because he was putting himself in danger unnecessarily, for one, but also in doing so, he basically was setting her up to return to the real world with no fucking family. Their parents were already fucking dead. That's why they were in the Borderlands last time, was that they were on this holiday with their parents and got in a fucking car wreck. And that's when their parents died. Is that true? I don't know if that's how they got into Borderland, okay? I think it is, but I don't know. But either way, they woke up in hospital and both of their fucking parents were dead. So why would you do that to her again? That's why that fucks me off so much. Yeah, he got to leave her a goodbye message as he was watching her getting married to some man. So basically, the reason why Ryuji was even doing any of Bodu, what's his name again? I've forgotten his name. Banda. The only reason why Ryuji was doing any of Banda's bidding when it came to like luring people, luring Usagi, which then was luring Arisu, and then he was also supposed to kill Usagi. He was meant to shoot her in the head. The only reason why he even did any of that is because Banda, memory of a fucking fish, bro. Banda was basically bribing him with like the answers to the universe, the answers to death, all the things he wants to know. And like the whole season, I was sitting here like, bitch, if he knows the answer, which I don't think he doesn't know shit. He doesn't know a fucking thing. But even if he does, he is not going to fucking tell you. Idiot. Buffoon. Man. So yeah, that fucked me off. I also wrote like this really ominous sounding sentence. Player selfishness leads to death of oneself or another. Because that's basically the gist, isn't it? There are lots of ways to die, right? But if you're going to be selfish, you or someone else is going to die. That's pretty much the one thing that carries on through all of the seasons of this show, is that selfishness leads to someone dying. Usually it is either the person being selfish dies, like in the zombie game, they died, or somebody close to the person who commits a selfish act dies, like in the final game where Tetsu died because of Nobu's selfishness, and Tetsu wasn't strong enough to help himself alone. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Yuna really Yuna really fucked me off. Yuna fucked me off at the end. That was the sister of the sibling duo. Like, she not only fucked the plan they had, but because she had so many points, she like really truly fucked everybody. Like, it was so close. And then also Arasu took the points from himself. I would have been like, hey bitch, give me your points. Like I would have been so mad. I think one of the other plot holes for this game as well, that I don't know whether it was actually either said or was clear, was like the points in each room. I thought it was one person had to pick their points, whereas I think some of them, the way they were talking amongst each other, sounded like they thought that they could all like donate or contribute some points towards the point tax. So I don't know. But then yeah, thanks to Yuna, Ray was in lockdown again. And she was in lockdown for so long because of them in the first place. Sachiko also ended up in lockdown, but she knew it was going to happen. Volunteered as tribute so they could get Nobu and stuff back again. Arasu sees some of the future options, like Usagi being dead, him dying as well. Like, some of them were noticing some of these deaths that were like supposedly literally about to happen. And it's like, hold on, how does that work? What's going on here? And yeah, I even wrote on here, I was like, oh, everyone's gonna die besides Usagi, right? Like, I can feel this fucking bullshit about to unravel, which thankfully it doesn't happen. We get like a tiny snippet of the new group in their new lives at the end. Again, nice, but I wish there was maybe a bit more. Something more, please. Final episode, not gonna lie, fucked me up a lot. Boring. A lot of it was really boring. I also just made a note, like, they're clever to be able to remember the points that get taken off in each different room. Who the fuck has that kind of memory? Not me, bitch. I can't remember these people's names as is, thank you. And like, that's how they were strategizing which rooms to go into and stuff at the end, especially when it came to like trying to collect certain members of their group. But there was still like one room with a big like question mark over it. No one had been in there yet, so they used like the baby points for that one, and that saves Usagi, because if she'd gone in there on her own, she'd have been dead. Game over. They confirmed Tetsu as dead, RIP. Usagi then also gets distracted trying to get the baby bracelet back. That fucks me off so much. Like, Usagi pisses me off. I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like, she kind of pissed me off in seasons 1 and 2. She has a monologue I skipped because it was just so long and so slow. Still don't know what she said. I've not watched it because it was, yeah, did nothing for me. So this fucks me off too. The amount of times that she's always so like, I don't know, affected by things that I don't feel like. I mean, for one, I don't feel like they should have believed any of these things on the walls. How do they fucking know? They don't, surely. I know that, Borderland is still the universe, the same like universe, but like an alternate. I don't know. I don't know how to explain those things. So yeah, she almost fucks everybody else up again. Arasu was trying to help her get through, and this is like the one time Ryuji does anything to try and help anybody, where he wedges his wheelchair in the doorway, so the door can't close. Usagi and Arasu can get back through the door, something like that. But Jesus Christ, did his wheelchair take a fucking beating. I thought someone was going to sacrifice themselves for Arasu to get out. They didn't. I'm not gonna lie, I actually was really surprised by that. I feel like, yeah, both Squid Game season 3, Alice in Borderland season 3 both had a few like last minute real like, oh, you thought I'm gonna do this instead, you know, like I never in a million years would have thought, I never thought they would have killed off Jian, like straight up. I never thought that was gonna happen, but I did think Alice in Borderland might have done it because they'd already done it. I'm not gonna lie, I really thought that might have happened. So glad it didn't, but they did set it up that I thought, I don't know, I thought that someone was going to volunteer themselves, sacrifice themselves. Like, you know, I kind of thought Ryugi might have done, but, you know, I thought he might have had his character development like 10 minutes earlier. He does not. And it is Arisu still stuck in there. And then things get weird outside. Everybody nearly dies anyway because there's basically kind of like a tsunami. And I was just like, honestly, I don't think I could respect Alice in Borderland if they do kill off Arisu, because Squid Game already did it earlier in the year. Arisu still manages to, like, he still gets a pass for the game, but that's when the Joker card comes up. The world starts collapsing. Like I said, they all get splashed off and around, and they're all hanging off of the outside of the building where they left the building last game, start getting washed away. Yeah, Arisu manages to get out because he can see what's happening outside. He saw that Ryuji held a fucking gun to the back of Usagi's head, who was obviously devastated to leave Arisu in there, but it goes white again inside the house building thing. I don't know. And there's the serial killer man. Bogan. That's not his name. Banda. Fuck. But he's a hologram. He's not really there. So I wish there was like maybe a bit more on that moment where Anne in the real world sees the fucking Joker standing behind Arisu and lunges for him. That was so cool. It would have been cool if she caught him, obviously. I just wish there was more to that moment because it was one of the few cool moments, in my opinion, but also with one of our past characters. And I was like, yeah, get him, bitch! Get him! Thanks to Anne, Arisu does not die, or is not quite dead yet. I can't remember who this guy is. It's the magical death man who will never die, and he's the only one who will never die because life and death and whatever the fuck. You know, the guy who was like, hello, you either choose to die and your baby lives, or you choose to live, but your baby probably dies, or some shit like that. I don't know. In some ways, I feel like it would have been kind of cool and a little bit more epic if that man was Usagi's dad. She sees him later. This is as far as my notes go, because I got to the point where I was like, I don't give a fuck. I don't fucking care. I thought it was her dad, because we didn't see his face properly yet. And I was like, wait, is it going to be her dad? No, it wasn't a fucking dad. And I'm honestly disappointed with that one. That was a disappointment. Like, that's basically all my notes. I stopped taking notes after that point because, one, I was struggling to follow along. I have no idea what the fuck was going on. Generally, I was actually quite disappointed by a lot of the choices made. They, again, dragged it out for nothing. Nothing was happening. I don't really know what else to say, really. There were some really good and interesting parts. Like, I can't lie. I've gone through that. There were some parts that were really cool, but honestly, I kind of wish those cool parts were just incorporated in season 1 and 2, and they just didn't have a season 3. I feel like it was a bit of a wasted opportunity to bring back a third season of the show that only brought back like the main couple, you know? I never found their relationship that compelling. Sorry, but like low-key, a lot of the time I don't give a fuck about a lot of romances that happen in some of these things, because they just have way more interesting dynamics and conversations and stuff with other characters who aren't their like romantic interest, you know? I find a lot of narratives that do rely too heavily on a love for a couple at times. It's not compelling because they are not fleshed out Like, these people are willing to bet life or death on this person that they don't even know yet, you know? So like there's so many books like this too. There was a dystopian book that I was reading on Libby. The main characters are quite young. They're like 15. And they just like suddenly fall in love within days. And I was just so uninterested. Sorry. What do you mean there's not 3 books before they officially have actually declared they are in love and are going to spend the rest of their lives together, like in the Hunger Games? What do you mean? Like, I hate insta love. I don't want a standalone romance novel to be insta love either. Like, I fucking hate that shit. There were very few parts of their like love story in Alice in Borderland that I found compelling or whatever. Like, I think the closest we got to compelling was when they were both naked in the hot spring, because they were like, do I look? Have we agreed yet that something's going on here, or no? Is there something going to happen? Oh, elephants! And then they have this beautiful moment, being like, "Wow, elefantes! Wow!" In the Borderland, the more we play, the more wildlife, both plants and animals, animals, come back and start taking over what was Tokyo. I didn't really care that much about. I, I did like that. I did like that most of the season they were apart. They were not able to be together. I was like, that's the only way I can actually watch this. Actually, well done. Congratulations. You realised I'm here and I exist and I'm a pain in the ass. I don't know. I did like the new characters they brought, but they did not spend long enough with them. I don't know why season 3 was 6 episodes. What the fuck was that? And then they wasted again. They spent so much time on fucking nothing. I feel like in the last like episode, there was just so much. Oh, Twilight. There was just so much stuff that just wasn't really happening. Wasn't really clarifying anything. You know, wasn't really connecting the dots anywhere. It felt very unsatisfying, and it just took fucking ages. And like, that last episode was fucking long. It was like an hour and a half or something like that. It was really long. I had to stop and start that last episode so many times. Yeah, so they wasted all that time in this the last episode that they should have been using in other episodes, but also they should have had more episodes, because I was just not invested enough. And that's the thing. I could see myself liking most, if not all, of these new characters they brought in as part of like the 2 groups and stuff, or like mostly Arasu's group, but like some in Usagi's group. I felt sad when some of those died, but like not sad enough. Yeah, they just didn't invest enough time in any of these characters, and I think they were just hoping that the viewers cared more about Arasu and Usagi than anything else. And then maybe Ryuji, I guess. Because I mean, yeah, we got more about him, but he wasn't very likable, guy. So yeah, I don't know. Just generally disappointed. Honestly disappointed. I've been here so fucking long, the sun's completely gone down almost. They did not give season 3 the time it needed or deserved, and you can really see, you can tell, it shows, and it's just very, very disappointing. It literally just needed 2 more episodes, really, to be able to invest more of that time into these other characters and the dynamics between them all, because they were fun together too. And I feel like we still, even though we did get like some backstory for most of them, some of them we still didn't get backstory for. And I feel like for some of them, we didn't really get that much backstory. It was still quite light-handed with what the backstory even was. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's it. I think I'm just going to say the same thing over and over again if I don't cut myself off now. So let me know what you thought of Alice in Borderland. If you want to watch another video of mine, I did a video early this year comparing Alice in Borderland with Squid Game. It was quite a popular video at the time. So go check it out. Let me know what you think. And yeah, that's it from me. go like, comment, subscribe, watch another video of mine, and I will see you next week. Bye!